Okay, so this is my screencast for the networking Ca. So I'll start in web server. So in here, the first thing we have is a string for the timestamp. So that's just the timestamp that we're going to send to the log file. So create three vectors, one for socket of clients, one a server socket, one of servers, and one of threads called my thread. So we go into main. You create the port number that the client servers are going to connect to. Then we create three port numbers that the web server is going to connect to. We create one client socket with the port, and then we create three server socket ones. Then we have the threads. We create the first thread in here, so this goes to a port listen function which is in server socket 1. Then we create a second one and third one, and then the main thread which is process thread. So this checks your server's vector to make sure there's something in it, then your client one, and if they're both okay, then it will know that it has a socket to connect to. So to get the first element of it using a temp socket, then this line here tells it which socket is connecting to the first time round. The buffer writer is just for the log file, so this is creating the log file and then writing to it using the timestamp and the details. And you have to close the log file. The timestamp removes the first server to the end of the queue, and then you have to remove the servers one as well and add the temp server back into it. So then here's where we start the 4 threads, and there's another while loop to check that the connection is actually there. So then in client you create a string sentence. This is your request sentence. So once you get a socket, the for loop means it'll do the client 10 times. So sentence, so this is the get request of what you're looking for. Then you have to create the socket, and you've a system that out just to say what socket is being used. Then there's an in from server reader. This gets parsed using parseInt into the new port, so that it knows what port it's using now, which is used here in the new socket. And then we just have an out to server write bytes to show what it's doing, what get request it has, and then with the in from server read lines. And then this bit at the end, the HTML, this is just printing out the HTML of the web page that it found using the get request. So now we have the server socket 1. This is where the server host requests are sent and processed. So create the server socket, socket connection, boolean to use to see will it connect, and then the string buffer process. So in port listen we have to pass in a port, so this is the port it's going to use. So in the socket 1 when you create it, it's on that port. This is just passing out information for you to know what port it's on. So in here it listens for the request by setting up the connection and does the HTTP request if the connection is found. If not, it'll have a bad connection. And then there's just for closing it down here. So in HTTP request, this is where the request is actually processed. So there's just some variables at the top, and then in run it calls the process request. So in here you're just setting up an input stream, a buffered reader, the request line. So then you have the file name here, which is the source plus the file name that got passed in. So then here it just says that it's incoming, so we know that it is finding something. And then if the file exists, it'll print out this with the content type, and if not, it'll say file not found. And the write bytes just writes back, so that in here in the client, in from server, it writes back to it to tell it that it has found something in the status line, the content type line. And then you have to close the output stream and the buffered reader stream. So if I run it in web server, run, and then if I go to client and run it too, you can see that it has ran it 10 times, getting the HTML. So the first time it used 334, and then it used 335 and 336. So they're the 3 port numbers that we have. So it's doing it over 3 different ports. That's it.